Kristin, welcome. It's good to have you here.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
It's your album has people on the floor here at CBS must think that we're getting a cut out of your album because it's been pouring out of my producer's office nonstop, and it was my producer who put me onto it. He came in, he gave it to me and said, "You've got to listen to this." And now John, our engineer, has been playing it in the hours between while you all listening to the show are listening to the news. We play music here to kind of keep our spirits up, and it's been Strange Angels, I think, for like the last 2 weeks.
And it's keeping your spirits up?
That interested us too. It's not what you're known for.
Please don't say it isn't.
I mean, there is, despite some of the messages of it, there is, for some reason, a feeling of an optimism that I don't associate with you. Tell you the damn truth.
A kiss and a slap.
Yeah.
I know. It's an awfully sweet record, though, don't you think?
It's a very sweet record.
I was surprised. I actually think that everything I've ever done was really positive and celebratory, and every time I did it, I thought, yay, music, I've really sold out now. and it never seemed to have that effect on anybody until Strange Angels, which doesn't seem to have hurt anybody's feelings.
Are you amazed, disappointed? What?
I'm pleasantly surprised, because I thought they were all sweet songs, but I guess I have a different threshold for sweetness than other people. But yeah, I think it means well, and it actually achieves well at the same time. It doesn't seem to confuse people too much.
That's of course has been another hallmark of Kristin Hersh people. In fact, my engineer had a great quote because I knew exactly what he meant, and it really kind of summed it up. He said, because he read the lyrics first before he put it on, and he said, I'm paraphrasing John. Believe me, I know I'm not doing justice, but the basic thing was, when I read the lyrics, they didn't make a hell of a lot of sense to me, but when she sang it, I understood.
Yeah, I'm really against printing lyrics on record sleeves for that reason, because these lyrics I hear as phonetic melody. They have a song logic that is not a brain logic. If I sit down and read them, I think, whoa, you should leave now. What the hell are you talking about? But while I play, the words spill out as if I wasn't even saying them. My brain has absolutely nothing to do with it, and that's as it should be, because they're not speaking to or coming from that part of me.
So where do they come from? How do they come to you? How do songs come to you?
I hear them. It's as if I get a tune stuck in my head, and then the lyrics come, like I said, as phonetic melody. It's just another instrument in the mix. And eventually I realized that those sounds are words, and those words are sentences and phrases that do take you for a ride if you trust them to do that. But it has a lot to do with the fact that they come as sound.
Mm-hmm. But I had a spooky kind of flashback when you were saying that, because the only experience I ever had like that, and I want to bore you with the whole story. The audience has heard this, and they think it's one of my, loonier stories. But I had one ghost experience that involved what people call a possession.
Wow.
Yeah, it's what I think, thinking back on it, long time ago. But coming out of it, and it happened to three of us at separate times, but coming out of it, when you kind of lost your identity, first kind of heard words, and then realized that the words had kind of sense, and then that they had a certain kind of rhythm, and then only then realized it was like my name, and then finally realized I was being hit a lot by people who are, get out of it.
That's exactly what it's like to write a song.
But that it's almost a far away thing that starts to piece itself together in your ears bit by bit.
Yeah, it definitely seems like it's going on, and when I hear it, I can grab a piece of it. And the songs will definitely use my life pictures, but I have never felt like I was writing a song on purpose.
Yeah, your songs have never been. I mean, they tell us something about you, but they don't have that kind of. And I'm not using this as a put down, but of her work, but just in comparison, it doesn't have that kind of Joni Mitchell confessional
Right.
quality to them.
There's I tend to think there's absolutely no self-expression. I have to have lived these stories so that I have the right almost biochemical makeup, and the songs work as a hypo of those chemicals that just shoot into my bloodstream, and because I can identify them because I've lived these stories, I will be telling the truth while I'm playing. But I don't think this is what I am expressing. These are my feelings. I'm dredging them up. I feel like I got them over there, and they're just coming into my ear and out my mouth. And there are a lot of yucky words you could use to describe that, but I'm not going to say them.
Is it an easy process for you then, or is it something that only happens occasionally when you're open to it, or what?
It happens seemingly whenever it wants. I've never asked it to happen, and I didn't even want it to happen for years and years. I'm still not so sure I really want it to happen. It's still a little closer to the curse than the blessing for me. But I do love music, when the songwriting is over, and so it's okay now.
Mm-hmm.
But they come and they play until I've learned them, and then they shut up. And I will often feel heat. I feel a kind of fever and
Mm-hmm.
electricity on my skin. My hair stands on end. And I think when I'm done with this career and I'm a scientist in the second half of my life, I'm going to prove that songs have heat and energy, that they are a force, that I make them into sound bodies, which everybody knows that has energy too.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe someone else would make them into another kind of body. This is just my experience of them, is that they're a real thing, and I can't really fight them, so I let them spill out and try to walk away and let my life.
It's almost like they're out there as their own presence, and you just
Exactly.
capture them.
Well, they kind of capture me. Like I said, I didn't really choose this as a career.
When you talk about the energy, obviously the energy is real different in doing Strange Angels and doing an acoustic album than with Throwing Muses. Does that come to you differently through the songs? I mean, are there certain songs where you think, well, this needs the energy of something loud and electric, or does it matter?
I think as soon as a song is written, my producer head jumps in and starts making stuff up, really. Sometimes I believe a guitar will write a certain song. Like these Strange Angels songs were written on one particular guitar that seems to call forth a different kind of story that sounds most attractive with this very simple, clear production, no ear candy,
Mm-hmm.
no makeup on the face. And Throwing Muses songs were almost grander in scope, very internal and very external, needing a lot of bright colors all over them in order to make them the most attractive they could be. But that probably has a lot to do with the craft part.
It's a very it's gutsy, because acoustic albums show you basically for what you are. I mean, there's no covering the tracks with that's okay. We'll just just power this up and get loud here, and nobody will know whether I'm actually singing or whether I can play
Yeah.
or anything else.
It's tempting to make up for the lack of band and just say, make this drippy over here and add more strings over here, and probably more people would like it, to tell you the truth. But
I don't know about that.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I've never.
I like the directness. It's almost, and I think it's one of the reasons why. And I know you're sick of hearing this about your stuff, that it grows on you, that it repays familiarity. But it's very direct. I mean, you're a very direct presence in the room of somebody. I don't even have the feeling, and this is very kind of weird, of like meeting you for the first time, which I am after having it on the player for a couple of weeks, because it makes you a very immediate presence.
Well, you hope that when you make a record that you are only capturing performances where the song actually did walk into the room. I remember making records with my band at Kingsway Studios in New Orleans, where the board is actually in the room with all the musicians, and you play in the room together. Maybe most people don't know how strange that is. You're usually in what are called ISO booths, and you are isolated from your fellow musicians, and it's very difficult to tear the limbs off of a song and staple them back on and expect the song to walk after an experience like that. So we like to make records in New Orleans where we could all be in the room together, and then every take it was very clear to even the engineer, Trina Shoemaker, whether or not the song came into the room. Otherwise, it's just your hands moving, you know? So an effective record is one that only captures those performances where the song actually did come in for a while. Because it doesn't always happen.
And what do you do then?
Then you can't figure out what's wrong, and you let your brain mess around with the production for days or weeks until it either gives up or the song comes in and decides to save your butt.
You, as I just knock my little windscreen down, the guitar playing. You're sitting over the guitar, so I'm going to plead with you to do something in a moment.
I just carry this thing around.
Well, yeah, it's just. Hey, listen, I know people that do just sort of carry it around.
Really?
Yeah, they're mostly in groups where they just feel that they want to hold something and want to look like they're doing something, and
It's hard for me to do vocals without holding the guitar. To just stand there and sing.
Is it?
Even when I'm all alone in the studio, it just seems really goofy, like you're in the shower or something. Singing is a stupid job.
Is it?
Oh yeah, it's a stupid activity. It's a really stupid job. Don't you think? I do.
No, but then I can't do it.
It's really hard to
When
play.
I do it, it's a stupid activity.
It's a hard instrument to play. You can't tune it. It's affected by weather and your mood and how much you've had to drink and how much you haven't had to drink, and it's hard for me. Maybe I'm whining.
No, it doesn't sound like whining. It's probably the most difficult instrument to master because it's always, unlike other instruments. Also, it's always changing. It changes with age, changes with your knowledge of it. Mm-hmm. It doesn't just sit there. It's not like once you can play an F7, you can play an F7.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. And it changes after screaming and yelling for 10 years in a rock band too. There are keys that are no longer within my realm.
Is that different when you're performing? Now, is it different to get the feel of? I mean, it's not your first acoustic, but you've been doing this a while with the previous album. But still, is it a different feeling when you're performing? Are you saying was it weird when you first went out with an acoustic set?
The hardest part was walking on stage, trying to pick up the guitar and climb up on a stool and not fall down and bump into the microphone, which sounds like boom, because I am a shy person and I just do not have the ambition or performance gene. And to have my friends there made up for that. It meant that the show was not mine. It was just sound, and we were all supposed to be there making this sound, and the audience was supposed to take it in. But as soon as I'm up on the stool, then there are actually fewer distractions. There's no set list. There isn't equipment to break down.
Mm-hmm.
There aren't other musicians to cue or to take cues from. So my flimsy personality just goes away really easily, and that serves the songs better. It's just that afterwards, then I got to get down off the stool and not bump into anything.
Yeah, I want to take a break for me, not for you, in a second, and have you sing something. But it's funny, you're talking about being shy. You're talking about not feeling that you're a performer and all that. People think of you, because of your songs, as being a really intense person.
I'm not. I'm really nice. But I think...
can't say not a nice person. Just...
I think my reputation works for me because I actually have a reputation as being a difficult artist, which, I mean, if you talk to anyone I've worked with, is not true at all. I'm so nice that I'll let people get away with anything.
Footprints on your face?
Pretty much.
Uh-huh.
And that's cool. I think it's smart to be nice, but I don't think it would have served me if everyone knew that I was nice. I think people might have tried to make me into something else early on in my career, and just I don't know if it was the screaming or the crazy reputation, but it's really awesome. I mean, a record company like Warner Brothers never made a mention of making me dress like a preteen or write pop songs or do any of the things that I mean, if they had, I would have said, "Oh, no, that won't happen," nicely. It's just the truth. It wasn't going to happen. But they never did. They always wanted me to do what I did naturally, which is great. I've broken so many rules in the music business that way. Just being over in the corner, I pay my rent. I never have hits, or I hardly have any fans.
No, you've got a ton of fans, but the hits, I mean, you're in the I don't want to say cult because that makes it sound like too narrow, but really except for what, Dizzy, Counting Backwards, I mean there hasn't been a ton of regular radio play. Does that help or hinder you? I mean, I could almost see in some ways artistically it could help you, because if the people at the label are not going, we need another hit, it's like you get these things with groups like REM that if the last album sold 10 million,
it's a failure.
And then and the next one sells only like 8 million.
Exactly.
It's like it's looked at as a horrible failure.
We've been saying that for 10 years, and I don't know if people thought we were defensive, but we really mean it. Like, you have a hit, and meatheads come to your show and yell for the single, and you can't play the show you want to play. I know who I'm playing for and what they're going to get and what they won't get, and it's exactly the same set that I want to play, that they want to hear. That's being a working musician, and it's like being a plumber. They just say, well, you do what you do, and make sure you do it well. Okay, here's $5, thank you. Otherwise, you become something that's most likely a cartoon version of yourself, a cartoon version of your music, and then you're supposed to just disappear, not play music anymore.
You look at a band like Leonard Skinner, and it got to the point where from the moment they'd walk out, everybody started going Freebird, and
people yell Freebird at me.
People are. I was in Antarctica where they do a thing on the first of the year called Ice Stock, and everybody who can play music, gets up and plays, and the guys there were like yelling Freebird at whoever was up there singing, even if they were like singing Billie Holiday tunes. But they got into the thing that people would yell it all during the concert, and as soon as they finally got around to playing, and of course they would have to play it, anything they did after that for a large part of the audience was an anticlimax. They weren't like really listening anymore.
Yeah, I also have a theory that bad bands' best songs are their singles, and good bands' worst songs are their singles. So good bands always hate their singles and never want to play them anyway. It's just not part of the game. It should be called something else, the top 40, MTV, anything that is celebrated as pop culture and music is usually something that we should admit is pretty cartoonish. Mm-hmm. And then the rest of us could just say, well, this is something else. We're not trying to make cartoons here. If we were, we'd really suck. I wouldn't have been in that band if I was trying to have a hit.
Can you play us something?
No. Do you?
Yeah.
That's nice of you.
Yeah. Well, it's very erudite of me.
Yes, it is.
It shows my good taste. See, and there's more than enough of an edge that you did not become your worst fear, which was, as I understand it, the wimpy girl folk singer.
That's it. You got it. See, I didn't make the first acoustic record on purpose. My husband wanted me to record some acoustic songs for him, and I thought that was a really lousy idea. So I did it knowing it would suck, and then I'd be off the hook. And instead, he just sent the tapes to my record companies who wanted to release them, which was like someone coming across your diary and saying, I'm going to publish this, okay? And so I had to learn to play by myself, to do photo shoots by myself, do interviews by myself. And
was that tough after what, you'd been in the group at that point for a decade or so, right?
Something like that. Yeah. 150 years since I was 14.
Yeah, back in the I remember you guys got together like in the 1800s.
You guys want to play stickball?
Having their double day. So you hated it? Really? You thought it sucked?
Well, no, I didn't. And I was really surprised by that. I took lots of walks on the beach with that record in my Walkman, and I was so sure that it was bad, and yet it sounded good. I was torn. I thought that if they were pages out of my diary, it was wrong to publish them. Not that I'm so sensitive, but that it's presumptuous to make someone pay for something that they couldn't possibly relate to, someone else's story, when I knew music to be a very effective filter for people to see their own life pictures through. Mm-hmm. I saw too much of myself in that material. It was too much involved with my goofy little daily life, you know, the part of me with shoes and car keys and grocery lists and babies. And gradually I realized that that's probably the most universal thing there is.
Yep. We were talking before we went on, because Wyatt's here. Uh-huh. And we were talking about our kids and about how, despite all of our career things and all the things that we do that make us unique, they're just a spectacular thing that just seems like the most important thing.
Yeah.
That we do in life, and it is a huge universal. And it's not, but it sounds really like it wasn't so much that you were afraid of opening yourself up and violating your own privacy as it was that you didn't think that we would want to have that
thrust on you.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. I knew that sentence would finish someday. Thank you for doing it.
It's the difference between a personal unconscious picture and a collective unconscious picture. It's something that either moves people for voyeuristic reasons or moves them for real reasons. You know, it should be beautiful because it's necessary, not beautiful because it's pretty or a soap opera.
But your lyrics are not, you know, I went to the store at 5 a.m. and bought myself some milk and then, you know, fell in love. I mean,
that's true.
They're not, they're not, you know, confining narratives that's like, oh, this has nothing to do with me. I'm just listening to the story of their life. So even though...
Yep. But there are songs that I believe are a precursor to actual songwriting, and they contain a lot of self-expression. The stuff you need to get out before you're empty enough to hear a real song. And I do write those. I think that, I'm not sure art, oh God, I said that word, the A word, is the right mode of self-expression, or a correct one. I'm not sure I really believe that you should be puking and using paints and guitars to do it. I think you need to talk to people that you love until you're clean in front of a human being, which is, you know, the greatest art form there is. And then you can be empty enough for a song to start talking, because I think songs are bigger than our psycho garbage. I think they're better than that.
Songs that last are better than that.
Right, exactly. A song that is limited to your little self-expression box is not going to be interesting to you for very long, and it's not going to be interesting to anyone else ever.
You really have this feeling of the songs of being almost a conduit.
I have no idea what I'm doing here. I carry in my pocketbook a list of all the other jobs I could have. But the songs keep coming, and they are not supposed to stay in my house. I tried to do that, and it was like raising children and keeping them locked up. It's not what they're for. They're supposed to be wrapped up and left on a table and walked away from, and the only way for me to do that is to do this, to actually bring them to people
Do you mind then doing songs that are more than a few years old, or do you think, no, I've presented those, I've walked away from them, they're out there now?
Um, no, that's as long as they're good songs, they become filters for different pictures, and they should be pretty timeless. I wasn't very good at being timeless when I was younger, so some of those songs I will just jump into and start talking. The song will be going along, and then in will come this kind of fakey melodic line that isn't as interesting as the rest of them. It sounds like a songwriter's crafted line, and I'll just say something like, "Oh, this is really bugging me. It's so hot in here," and then it'll return to the song. I wasn't good at staying out of the process on our earlier records, but sometimes because I had youth on my side, I was not very good at controlling my brain either. So it would just disappear sometimes, and a real song would just slip through that I had nothing to do with. I just knew that it moved me really hard, and they continue to do so.
You think you give yourself enough credit?
It may be that my craft is a process that's invisible to me
Mm-hmm.
because I'm so used to it, and I'm sure there's plenty of craft involved. But I didn't want to do this.
Yeah, but we know.
I wanted to be a doctor. I had
You're
good
young.
grades, too. I could have done it.
You could still do it.
I could, yeah, but I have to wait for these songs to go away. It's been a year since I've written a song, and sometimes I think, oh, maybe I could be normal. Maybe that was my visit with the muse, and it's going to move on to somebody else now. But,
It's been a year.
yeah, since my band broke up.
Yeah, I was going to ask whether that had anything to do.
I think I was literally depressed by that. I just shut down enough to not hear songs. And, I've never experienced writer's block because I never was trying to write. So maybe if I were, then this would be considered writer's block of a sort. But it's kind of a nice break for me.
Well, it is. Do you think because life has gotten more peaceful for you? It seems from kids and marriage and settling out in the desert and all of that. Do you think that this is like a different part of the passage now?
Possibly. Maybe there are no songs for me. But I've never experienced life as very peaceful. Happiness, I think, is very complicated and jumpy and twitchy. I think it's a nice high and yet not particularly calm. It moves me too hard to calm me down. Mm-hmm. I love those people too much for it to be still at all. So I don't feel like there is less energy there. Maybe fewer. Maybe there's less bile to spit out. But that's never what I wanted to use songs for anyway.
Who are your influences? Or did you have any that...
I wanted to. I really fell in love with X from L.A., you know, the Violent Femmes, Husker Du, the Meat Puppets, the Minutemen, R.E.M., and I really wish that I could sound like all of those people. And so I'd write like an R.E.M. song. But of course it would suck. And I'd write an X song and it would suck too. It would be, not as good as an X song and not as good as a Throwing Music song. And
now, were you hearing those songs the same way, or were you consciously trying to...
I was a kid. I was, 16 years old going, they are way cooler than me. I want to be them.
Can I trouble you for one more song before?
Oh, sure, yeah.
I've been waiting 20 years for somebody to say that.
That sky is ashine with sheen. Those eyes are a green machine. Spare me your whining in my rainy gazebo tree. Deep in my silver pit, owls are up thick with it. gazebo tree. In my rainy gazebo tree. In my rainy gazebo tree.
I love that song.
Oh, this is called Heaven. In the race, but out of step, you struggle to hold up your head. Like a river, you fight your own death. I'm needing backyard sanctuary. I'm on break time, where the sissies hang. Looking for oil in the sand. Like a river, you gouge out the land. Like a drummer who fights the wrong band. I'm needing backyard sanctuary. I'm on break time, where the sissies hang. This is heaven. This is heaven. This is heaven, where the sissies hang. A hot shower on a hot day. Water hangs in the air like you stayed. Like you never went down your own drain. I'm doing rain and hurricane. I am airborne, where the kisses fly. This is heaven. This is heaven. And all my friends are there in heaven. This is heaven. And all my friends are there in heaven. This is heaven. This is heaven, where the sissies hang.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I see. Now I have this almost sad feeling because I want you to start hearing those songs again because I want more. But thank you. Strange Angels is it's wonderful.
Thank you for saying so.
Well, thank you for doing it. Thank you for being here, Kristin. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much. Wow, you know a lot more stuff than I expected. I was surprised.
I know.